The stadium lights flickered like dying stars as coach Harlan Reeves stormed off the field, his cleats crunching the turf like shattered glass underfoot. "You're throwing it all away, Connor. For what? Some prancing bullshit." His voice cracked like a whip, echoing through the emptying stands, where the ghosts of roaring crowds still lingered in the chill Ohio night. Connor stood frozen at midfield, the football helmet dangling from his numb fingers, its weight heavier than any touchdown he'd ever scored, as tears blurred the goalposts into accusing sentinels. Connor Reeves had always known the weight of expectation like a second skin, tight, unyielding, stitched from the leather of pigskins and the roar of Friday night lights. Born in the Rust Belt heart of Youngstown, Ohio, where steel mills coughed their last breaths and high school football was the only religion that didn't demand pews, he was the son of Harlan Reeves, the man who'd turned the Steel Valley Spartans into state champions 3 years running. Harlan wasn't just a coach. He was a legend, a grizzled bear of a man with a jaw like chiseled granite and eyes that could spot a fumble from the bleacher's nosebleeds. He'd built his life on the gridiron, dragging the town out of despair one blitz at a time, and from the cradle, he'd molded Connor in his image. Broad shoulders from Pee-wee leagues, calloused hands from endless drills, a heart conditioned to beat in four-quarter rhythms. But beneath the shoulder pads and the playbook recitations, Connor harbored a secret rebellion, one that bloomed in the quiet hours after curfew. It started innocently enough at 12, when he'd snuck into the community center's dance studio to escape the echo of his father's post-loss tirades. The room smelled of polished wood and faint sweat, mirrors lining the walls like infinite confessions. He'd watched from the shadows as a group of girls twirled in leotards, their movements fluid, defiant against gravity. Then, on impulse, he'd stepped into the light, mimicking a pirouette with clumsy feet. It wasn't grace that hooked him first. It was the freedom, the way his body could speak without words, without the brutal poetry of tackles and yards gained. By high school, the charade had deepened. Connor was the golden boy quarterback, all-American smile plastered on local news clips, girls giggling in the hallways as he passed. But at night, he'd drive his beat-up Ford pickup to Cleveland, an hour's haul on I-80, to the city's underbelly of art scenes. There, in a nondescript warehouse-turned-studio, he discovered ballet, not as a whim but as a lifeline. The teacher, Madame Elise, a French émigré with silver-streaked hair and a voice like velvet over steel, saw something in him immediately. "You move like a storm trapped in silk, mon cher," she'd said, adjusting his arabesque with hands that had once graced Paris stages. Under her guidance, Connor's body transformed, muscles lengthening into lines of power rather than bulk, leaps that devoured space, turns that whispered of hidden tempests. Yet the double life gnawed at him. At home, Harlan's pride was a crown of thorns. Dinners where scouting reports from Division I programs were dissected like holy writ, weekends commandeered by summer camps in sweltering Pennsylvania fields. "This is your legacy, son?" Harlan would grunt over plates of meatloaf and mashed potatoes, his calloused fingers drumming the table like Morse code for unbreakable tradition. Connor nodded, swallowed the lie, and excused himself to his room, where he'd stretch in secret, the floorboards creaking under his plies like guilty accomplices. It was during junior year, amid the frenzy of playoff season, that Zachary entered the frame like a spotlight cutting through fog. Zachary Hale was everything Connor wasn't. Unapologetically himself, a senior at the Cleveland School of the Arts, with sun-kissed blonde hair that fell in effortless waves and blue eyes that held the mischief of Lake Erie gales. Zach danced like he was born to it, lead in the company's youth production of Giselle, his extensions sharp as switchblades, his partnering lifts tender as confessions. They met at a late-night rehearsal, Connor slipping in after a grueling practice, his duffel bag heavy with hidden point shoes. "You're new," Zach had said. Not a question, wiping sweat from his brow as the pianist paused for water. He was in black tights and a loose tank, his skin glowing under the harsh fluorescence. Connor froze mid-warm-up, heat rising not from exertion but from the way Zach's gaze lingered, appraising, inviting. "Just passing through," Connor muttered, tying his laces tighter than necessary. But Zach didn't let it drop. Over the next hour, as they shared the bar, their reflections intertwined in the mirrors, Connor's tentative jetés syncing unwittingly with Zach's grand battements. It was effortless, that pull like two rivers converging. After, as the studio emptied, Zach cornered him by the vending machine. "Stick around. We're doing the Nutcracker auditions next week. You could crush Clara's prince." Connor laughed it off, a bark too loud for the empty hall. "I'm not. Football's my thing." But the seed was planted, watered by the drought of his own authenticity. They exchanged numbers, ostensibly for rehearsal schedules, and Connor drove home with Zach's laugh echoing in his ears, a melody more intoxicating than any end-zone cheer. Weeks blurred into a clandestine rhythm. Texts lit up Connor's phone during halftime huddles. "Nailed that double tour today. Your turn to show off." Stolen afternoons in Cleveland studios turned into coffee runs at corner bistros, where Zach talked dreams with the fervor of youth unscarred. New York City Ballet. Maybe Joffrey, a life stitched from tulle and applause. Connor listened, envying that fearlessness, sharing fragments of his own cage. The pressure of Harlan's shadow, the town's unyielding gaze. "You're more than a jersey number," Zach said one rainy evening, their knees brushing under a Formica table. His hand covered Connor's, brief as a breath, but electric. Connor didn't pull away. The first kiss happened under the marquee of the State Theater, after a matinee of Swan Lake. Rain slicked the streets, neon reflections dancing in puddles like rejected choreography. Zach tugged him into the alley, away from the exiting crowds, and pressed close, lips tasting of peppermint gum and possibility. It was tentative at first, Connor's heart hammering like a bass drum, then fierce, a release of all the poses he'd held too long. When they broke apart, foreheads touching, Zach whispered, "This is you, Con, not the pads. This." But secrets have half-lives, decaying into exposure. It started small. A missed practice excused as flu, Harlan's brow furrowing over the dinner table. Then, the whispers, teammates spotting Connor's truck in Cleveland arts districts, jokes laced with barbs about quarterback turning queer. Connor doubled down, throwing spirals with venom, but the fracture lines spiderwebbed. Zach became his anchor, their rehearsals evolving into something deeper. Pas de deux where hands lingered, gazes locked in lifts that felt like flying. "I love how you fight it," Zach murmured once, during a slow adagio, his breath warm against Connor's neck. "But you don't have to anymore, love." The word hung unspoken but luminous, a private aurora in their shared silences. Yet Harlan's world narrowed, suspicions hardening into interrogations. "Who's this Hale kid texting you at all hours?" he'd demand, scrolling Connor's phone when he thought his son slept. Connor lied, heart splintering, but the walls closed in. The playoffs loomed, a colossus of expectation, and with them, a choice. The gridiron glory or the stage's whisper. One crisp October night, after a brutal win that left bruises blooming like ink under his ribs, Connor confessed to Zach in the studio's dim afterglow. "He'll never understand. It's his life or mine." Zach pulled him into an embrace, strong and sure, their heartbeats syncing like a duet. "Then choose yours. We'll face the storm together." But storms in Youngstown didn't rage. They simmered, building to flash floods. Harlan's discovery came not with thunder, but a quiet betrayal. A forgotten point shoe in the truck's glove box, unearthed during an oil change. The confrontation erupted that Sunday, Bible study fresh on their tongues, the house shaking with Harlan's roar. "Ballet? With some boy? You're ruining everything we built." Connor stood his ground for the first time, voice steady as a fouet. "It's not ruin, Dad. It's me." The door slammed, tires screeched, and Connor fled to Cleveland, to Zach's cramped apartment above a falafel joint, where the scent of cumin mingled with despair. They held each other through the night, words failing where touch succeeded, a fragile bulwark against the tide. But dawn brought no mercy. Harlan's calls went unanswered. The team benched Connor for focus issues. The town buzzed with scandal's hum. And in the quiet, Connor wondered if love could outrun legacy, or if it would merely drown them both. The weeks that followed Harlan's discovery were a masterclass in quiet devastation, the kind that seeps into bones like Midwestern damp. Connor holed up in Zach's apartment, a shoebox of a space with peeling wallpaper and a Murphy bed that creaked like old regrets. Zach's roommate, a lanky violinist named Theo, mercifully kept his schedule packed with gigs, leaving the place to their hushed unraveling. Mornings blurred into pas de deux across the linoleum kitchen, Zach's laughter a forced sunlight piercing the gloom. "We'll audition for the Nutcracker together," he'd insist, spinning Connor into an impromptu lift that ended in shared grins. But Connor's turns faltered, his focus splintered by voicemails he deleted unheard. Harlan's gravelly pleas morphing to accusations, then silence. Back in Youngstown, the fallout cascaded like dominoes toppled by a ghost wind. The Spartans' locker room, once a brotherhood forged in sweat and slaps on the pads, turned toxic. Teammates who'd idolized Connor now shot sidelong glances, whispers of fairy quarterback, slithering through the steam of post-practice showers. Coach Harlan, ever the tactician, played it stoic in public, gruff pep talks about family sticking together. But privately, he doubled down on drills, as if exhaustion could exorcise the shame. At home, the Reeves bungalow felt hollowed out. Mrs. Reeves, Ellen, a soft-spoken librarian with Connor's green eyes, tiptoed around the elephantine void, her attempts at mediation dissolving into tears over untouched pot roasts. Connor's phone became a battlefield, pings from old friends laced with judgment. "Heard you're dancing now. Miss the field, bro?" He blocked them one by one, each swipe a small severance. Zach, bless his reckless heart, became the bridge to normalcy, dragging Connor to dive bars in the flats where drag queens belted show tunes, or to midnight screenings of old Fred Astaire flicks at the Capitol. "See? Even he started in football," Zach joked once, referencing Astaire's vaudeville roots, but the levity rang hollow. Their intimacy deepened in those stolen pockets, fingers tracing collarbones during slow stretches, kisses that tasted of black coffee and unspoken fears. It was love, raw and adolescent, the kind that promises eternity in a glance but trembles at dawn. Yet betrayal's shadow lengthened. It came from an unlikely quarter Tommy Tank Bradshaw, Connor's best friend since Pop Warner days, a lineman built like a fridge with a heart to match. Tank had always been the buffer, the one who'd cover for Connor's mysterious absences with tales of fishing trips. But loyalty frays under pressure, and Tank, cornered by Harlan's pointed questions after a team film session, cracked. "Coach, it's that ballet crap. And, yeah, the guy's gay. I mean, Connor's into him." The words spilled like oil, slick and irreversible, reported back to Connor via a panicked text from a mutual friend. Tank ratted, "Harlan knows everything." The revelation hit like a blindside sack. Connor confronted Tank at the local diner, the one with checkered floors and grease that clung to soles. Rain lashed the windows as they sat in a booth, milkshakes sweating between them. "Why?" Connor demanded, voice a whisper shout, fists clenched under the table. Tank's face crumpled, bull neck flushing red. "He cornered me, man. Said if I didn't come clean, I'd lose my ride to state. Is football or us, Con? Always has been." Betrayal tasted metallic, sharper than any turf burn. Connor stormed out, leaving Tank with the bill and a friendship's corpse. That night, the dam broke. Curled on Zach's bed, Connor sobbed into the pillow, body racked with heaves that echoed his father's disappointments. Zach held him through it, murmuring nonsense in French, "Mon cœur, respire," his hands mapping Connor's back like a choreography of comfort. "He was family," Connor choked out, "and he sold me out for a scholarship." Zach's reply was fierce, eyes flashing like stage lights. "Then build a new family, one that doesn't trade you for touchdowns." They made love in the soft way of the wounded, slow, reverent, bodies aligning in a rhythm older than words. No frenzy, just the quiet affirmation of skin on skin, breaths mingling like fog over the Cuyahoga. But wounds fester. Harlan's next move was surgical. A petition circulated through the Boosters Club, pressuring the school board to bench Connor indefinitely for conduct unbecoming. Whispers of transfer rumors swirled, painting Connor as the villain in his own exile. Ellen Reeves, caught in the crossfire, finally intervened, showing up unannounced at Zach's door with a Tupperware of lasagna and eyes red-rimmed. "He's destroying himself, Connor. Come home. We can fix this." Connor, shirtless and disheveled, felt the pull, maternal warmth against the chill of rejection. But Zach hovered in the kitchen, arms crossed, a silent sentinel. "Fix it how, Mrs. R? By making him someone he's not." The standoff stretched, Ellen's gaze flickering between them, landing on their linked hands with a dawning ache. "I just want my boy back," she whispered. And in that moment, Connor saw the collateral. A mother fraying at the seams, her quiet faith in Harlan's world cracking. He hugged her goodbye on the stoop, promising talks, but the door clicked shut like a final curtain. As autumn deepened, leaves carpeting the studios in crimson decay, opportunity knocked in the form of the Nutcracker editions. Madame Elise, sensing the storm in Connor's turns, pulled strings for a guest spot. Zach, already cast as the Cavalier, beamed like he'd won the lottery. "This is it, Con. Our stage." Rehearsals became salvation. The sugar plum fairies glissade, a metaphor for slippery escapes. The waltz of the flowers, a riot of color against gray despair. Connor's technique sharpened, fueled by fury. Extensions higher, landings softer. Each step a defiance etched in sweat. Yet doubt gnawed. Harlan's silence was a vacuum, sucking air from every breath. One evening, post-rehearsal, as snow dusted Cleveland's shoulders, Zach proposed the unthinkable. Invite him to opening night. Let him see you, not the son he wants, but the one he has. Connor recoiled, the idea a grenade. He'll burn the place down. But Zach's persistence wore him down, their arguments dissolving into kisses that tasted of compromise. A ticket bought, an invitation slipped under the Reeves' door like a peace offering wrapped in barbed wire. The night before the dress rehearsal, betrayal's echo resurfaced. Tank, seeking absolution, cornered Connor at the gym, awkward weights clanging like accusations. "I didn't mean it to go this far, bro coach. He's talking to scouts about you quitting. Says it's for your own good." Connor's punch connected before thought, knuckles splitting on Tank's jaw, blood blooming like a rose on concrete. Security hauled him out, banshee wails of sirens harmonizing with his rage. Zach collected him at the station, ice packed to his hand, and they drove in silence, the city's lights smearing into accusations. In the apartment's hush, Connor broke again. "I can't do this without him hating me." Zach's response was a vow, sealed with a forehead kiss. "Then let him hate the truth. We'll dance through it." As they fell asleep entwined, Connor clung to that promise, unaware that the real storm brewed not in words, but in the wings of fate. Winter clamped down on Cleveland like a vice, the lake-effect snow piling drifts against the studio windows, turning rehearsals into sieges against the cold. Connor threw himself into the Nutcracker with a ferocity that bordered on mania, each grand jeté a middle finger to the life he'd outgrown. Madame Elise watched with hawk eyes, corrections sharp but laced with pride. "Breathe into the line, darling. Let it sing." Zach, ever the optimist, choreographed private variations for them in the alcove, improvising lifts where Connor's weight felt like air, their bodies a dialogue of trust. Offstage, their world shrank to these moments. Brunch at the West Side Market, haggling over pierogies. Walks along the snowy shores of Edgewater Park, mittened hands swinging like pendulums. Love, in its tender phase, wove safety nets from stolen glances, but Connor's bruises, literal from the gym brawl, figurative from Tank's treachery, faded slowly. Harlan, meanwhile, stewed in Youngstown's cauldron. The Spartans stumbled through games without their star, losses stacking like cordwood. The local paper's headlines a litany of blame. Reeves' rift costs crucial win. Boosters cornered him at the Elks Lodge, cigars puffing accusations. "Get the boy back on the field, Harlan. Family first." But Harlan's nights were haunted. Ellen's side of the bed a cold frontier. He'd pore over old game tapes, pausing on Connor's fades, The boys form a ghost of potential squandered. The ballet ticket arrived like an indictment, tucked in an envelope with Connor's scrawled note. See me. Really see me. December 20th, 8 p.m. State Theater. Harlan crumpled it, then smoothed it flat, the paper's creases mirroring his fractured resolve. Ellen became the fulcrum. Over chamomile tea in the kitchen, steam curling like unspoken pleas, she pressed. He's your son, not your successor. What if you lose him for good? Harlan's retort was a growl. He's throwing away his future. But doubt seeded. He drove to Cleveland unannounced, parking blocks from the studio, watching from his truck as shadows pirouette behind fogged glass. There was Connor, mid-lift, hoisted by a blonde boy whose grace Harlan dismissed as weakness. Jealousy flared, hot and irrational. Not for the dance, but for the joy etching Connor's face, a light Harlan hadn't sparked in years. Back home, the coach's armor cracked. He called Connor's number, voicemail beeping like a lifeline. Son, I got your note. We'll talk after. The message hung, a olive branch dipped in brine. Connor, listening in Zach's bathroom with the faucet running to muffle sobs, felt the pull. A father's voice, weathered but warm. He texted back, I'll save your seat. As opening night neared, the cast buzzed with pre-show jitters. Theo, Zach's roommate, hosted a cast party in their apartment. Fairy lights strung like tinsel hopes, mulled wine steaming. Connor, in a borrowed sweater that smelled of Zach's cologne, mingled awkwardly, fielding questions about his football past with deflections. Tank's betrayal lingered like a phantom ache, but Zach's arm around his waist anchored him. To us? Zach toasted privately, clinking mugs, their kiss hidden in the pantry's spice-scented dimness. The dress rehearsal was electric, the theater's cavernous belly humming. Connor, as the Nutcracker Prince in a truncated variation, nailed his solo, diabolical turns slicing the air, partnering Zach's Clara with a tenderness that drew gasps from the wings. Madame Elise dabbed tears, whispering, C'est magnifique, but post-curtain, elation soured. A call from Ellen. Your father's coming. Alone. Give him a chance. Doubt coiled in Connor's gut like a serpent. That night, sleep evaded, dreams replaying Harlan's rages in tutued farce. Zach, sensing the turmoil, pulled him close. Whatever happens, you're enough. Their lovemaking was a balm. Gentle explorations, whispers of affirmation mapping scars both seen and unseen. Dawn found them tangled, snow tapping the window like impatient applause. December 20th dawned brittle, skies leaden over the Cuyahoga. Connor's morning ritual, coffee black as resolve, a drive to the cemetery where his grandfather, Harlan's father, a mill worker who died coaching Little League, rested under frosted granite. He wanted more for you, Connor murmured to the stone, leaves skittering like judgments. Back at the theater, makeup artists dusted his face with powder, transforming him. Kohl-lined eyes, hair slicked to princely sheen. Zach, in Clara's gown for the pas de deux, stole a kiss backstage. Break a leg. And his heart, if you have to. The house filled slowly, patrons in furs and finery. The air thick with program rustles and hushed anticipations. Connor peeked from the wings, scanning rows for Harlan's bulk. There, center orchestra, alone, program clutched like a shield, face a mask of stoicism. Heart thundering, Connor retreated, deep breaths sinking with the overture's swell. Act 1 unfolded in confectionery whirl. Mice skirmishing with soldiers, the Christmas trees ascent a miracle of strings. Connor's entrance as the Nutcracker was met with polite applause, but he danced as if for Judgment Day, every chassé precise, every bourrée a plea. Intermission brought no Harlan sightings. The coach sat stone still, program unread, eyes fixed on the proscenium like it held indictments. The second act's divertissements dazzled, Spanish chocolate's fire, Arabian coffee's sinuous sway, but tension ratcheted as Clara and the prince's pas de deux approached. Backstage, Zach adjusted Connor's costume, fingers lingering. I love you, he breathed, the words a talisman. Connor echoed it, throat tight, then stepped into the glare. The duet was revelation. Zach's Clara awakening to the prince's world. Their lifts soaring, adagios melting into harmony. Connor's gaze never left Zach's, a private vow amid the public gaze. From his seat, Harlan watched, fists clenched on armrests, the sight twisting something primal. This wasn't the brute poetry of football. It was vulnerability weaponized, strength in surrender. When the sugar plum fairy crowned them, applause thundered, but Harlan remained seated, a colossus unmoved, or was it cracked? Curtain calls blurred in adrenaline haze. Connor bowed deep, sweat-streaked and alive, scanning for his father. Harlan stood last, clapping mechanically, then slipped into the aisle, vanishing into the throng. Elation curdled to dread. He saw, Zach said, hugging him fierce in the green room. That's step one. But steps falter. As the cast dispersed into snowy streets, Connor's phone buzzed. Harlan, meet me at the diner. Now, the message was curt, devoid of warmth, and Connor's pulse stuttered. Zach squeezed his hand. Go. I'll be here. The diner glowed like a beacon, neon open, flickering against the night. Harlan waited in their old booth, coffee steaming untouched, face etched with lines deeper than Ohio quarries. Connor slid in opposite, the vinyl squeaking accusation. You came, he said, voice small. Harlan's eyes, bloodshot, met his. Saw you up there, prancing like it meant something. The word hung, a guillotine. Connor braced, but Harlan continued, voice fracturing. Reminded me of your granddad. He coached me through my first loss, said a man's measure ain't in wins, but in getting up. Paws heavy as chains. I forgot that. Tears pricked Connor's eyes. The booth a confessional. It's not prancing, Dad. It's me. And Zach. He's part of that. Harlan flinched at the name, but didn't recoil. The boy. I saw how you looked at him. Silence stretched. Then Harlan's hand, rough, hesitant, reached across. I ain't ready for all this, but I miss my son. It wasn't absolution, but a truce. Connor gripped back, knuckles whitening. Outside, snow fell softer, blanketing the divides. Driving to Zach's, Connor replayed the grip, a fragile bridge. But bridges sway, and the real quake loomed unseen. The fragile peace with Harlan was like fresh snow, pristine, but melting under scrutiny's heat. Over the holiday break, the Nutcracker run extended by sold-out houses. Connor shuttled between worlds. Cleveland's festive glow and Youngstown's subdued cheer. Dinners at home resumed. Awkward quadrilles of small talk over Ellen's gingerbread. Harlan grunting approvals at mentions of the show. No deep dives into Ballet or Zach, but the air thawed. Harlan even attended a matinee, sitting ramrod in the third row, applauding with restrained vigor. Not bad, kid, he muttered post-show, clapping Connor's shoulder like testing a melon. It stung, the qualifier, but Connor savored the contact, a breadcrumb trail back to connection. Zach, the steady orbit, grounded him through the whirl. Their New Year's was spent in the apartment, Theo's violins serenading as they slow-danced to Coltrane, champagne bubbles fizzing like unspoken futures. To us, Zach toasted again, but this time with eyes shining of plans. Joint additions for summer intensives, dreams of shared lofts in Manhattan. Connor kissed him under the TV's ball drop countdown, heart swelling with possibility. Love, matured now, wove practicality into passion. Shared grocery lists, laundry folded in tandem, the domestic poetry of two lives entwining. Yet betrayal's aftershocks rippled. Tank, nursing his jaw in guilt, attempted amends via a letter slipped under the truck's wiper. I fucked up. Football's nothing without you. Forgive? Connor burned it in the studio's utility sink, flames licking the words to ash. Trust, once shattered, reform jagged. Whispers persisted in Youngstown, church ladies clucking over that phase, boosters eyeing Harlan with pity. The coach, defensive, doubled down on the Spartans' spring regimen, but cracks showed. A lost scrimmage, attributed in the press to leadership voids. Spring bloomed tentative, dogwoods dusting the Cuyahoga Valley in pink defiance. Connor's senior year wound down, college letters piling like autumn leaves, football powerhouses like Ohio State, but also discreet inquiries from arts programs. Juilliard, Point Park. Harlan spotted the latter, a glossy brochure on the kitchen counter, and the old fault lines trembled. "What's this crap?" he barked over breakfast, waving the pamphlet like a red flag. Ellen intervened, voice steel-wrapped silk. "It's his choice, Harlan, not ours." The argument simmered into standoff, Harlan retreating to his den, Connor to Cleveland. Zach sensed the storm. "Talk to him, before it swallows you." Connor tried. A porch sit-down under April stars, beers sweating in hands. "Dad, I want both. Football scholarships for fallback, but ballet. It's my fire." Harlan's laugh was bitter fog. "Fire? It's a spark that'll fizzle. Real men build legacies, not twirl in tights." The words landed like haymakers, reopening scars. Connor left, tires spinning gravel, the bridge buckling anew. Summer intensives loomed, a crucible. Zach and Connor auditioned together for the Chautauqua Festival, a week in western New York where lake breezes carried promise. The callback came joint. Principal roles in a new work, Rivers of Steel, a nod to Rust Belt rebirth through dance. Elation surged. They packed duffels with point shoes and optimism, Harlan's blessing a curt nod. "Don't forget who pays the gas." Chautauqua was idle wrapped in rigor. Mornings in sun-dappled studios, afternoons hiking amphitheater trails, evenings with lakeside picnics. Their roles intertwined, Connor as the millworker, Zach as the dreamer. Choreography a metaphor for their bond. Lifts evoking burdens shared and shed. Off hours, they kayaked the glassy waters, laughter echoing off bluffs, kisses stolen in the willows. "This is forever," Zach whispered one twilight, fingers laced as fireflies ignited. Connor believed it, the world vast and yielding, but paradise frays at edges. News from home intruded. Harlan, pushing for a Spartan alumni game, recruited Tank as assistant coach. A olive branch or slap? Connor seethed, confronting via call. "You're rewarding the snake?" Harlan's defense was gruff. "Kid needs redemption, like someone else I know." The subtext stung, Connor the prodigal, forever proving. Tank's texts resumed, contrite. "Congrats on the gig. Tank here, let me make it right." Ignored, they festered. Mid-festival, climax brewed. A guest choreographer, Elena Vasquez, a Broadway veteran with a penchant for drama, pushed their duet into raw territory. A betrayal sequence, the millworker shoving the dreamer into shadows, only to reclaim in anguished reconciliation. Rehearsals unearthed Connor's ghosts. During a run-through, he faltered, dropping Zach mid-lift, the thud echoing like Tank's confession. Tears followed, backstage collapse into Zach's arms. "It's him. Dad's still choosing the game over me." Zach's comfort was fierce. "Then we choose us. Audition for New York solo if you have to." The seed took, but doubt rooted deep. That night, under a canopy of stars by the lake, they made promises. Vows etched in whispers, bodies affirming what words couldn't. Dawn brought resolve. Connor would confront Harlan post-festival, lay bare the ultimatum. Return to Ohio was jarring, Chautauqua's haze yielding to humidity and horns. The Reeves home thrummed with preseason buzz, Harlan's den a war room of playbooks. Dinner was minefield, Ellen's lasagna a buffer, small talk curdling. Connor waited till dessert, fork stabbing pie like resolve. "Dad, I got into Juilliard." Early decision. Silence blanketed, Harlan's fork clattering. "The hell you did." Eyes locked, father-son standoff, Ellen fleeing to dishes. "It's ballet, full ride." "Zach too, we're going together." Harlan's face mottled, veins bulging. "With that boy?" Throwing state away for fairy tales. The slur landed visceral, Connor rising, chair scraping. "He's not that boy. He's my future. And if you can't see that, maybe I don't have room for your legacy." Harlan's roar chased him out. "You'll regret this." Door slammed. Connor peeled away, heart pounding to Cleveland. Zach waited with open arms, but the poison lingered. Days later, betrayal's second strike. Scouts from Ohio State called Harlan, inquiring on Connor's commitment. The coach, in protective fury, spilled tales of distractions, lifestyle choices. The words twisted into sabotage. Leaked to the press. Headlines screamed, "Spartan star son ditches gridiron for gay dance dream?" The town ignited, social media infernos raging. Connor's phone exploded. Hate from strangers, silence from friends. Tank's final text, "Coach didn't mean it, but it's out." Isolation clawed. Zach's embrace the soul harbor. "We fight," Zach urged, but Connor's fire dimmed. The bridge not just swaying, collapsing. In the studio's merciless mirrors, Connor danced alone, turns whipping like accusations. Madame Elise pulled him aside. "The heart leads, mon cher. Follow it or lose yourself." But hearts falter, and as summer waned, Connor wondered if love could rebuild what legacy had raised. Autumn's return was a requiem, leaves falling like confetti from a funeral. The scandal's blaze scorched Juilliard's offer. Administrators, citing publicity concerns, rescinded tentatively, a polite poison pill. Zach's acceptance held, but the fracture gaped. Separate paths, New York for one, limbo for the other. Connor withdrew into the studio, rehearsals a masochistic ritual, body pushed to breaking points where pain drowned thought. Zach hovered, worry etching his brow, their intimacy strained. Kisses clipped, nights spent staring at ceilings, the space between them widening like a grand rift. Harlan, architect of the ruin, retreated into Spartan denial. Practices became marathons, his whistle a lash driving boys to exhaustion. Ellen bridged futilely, letters to Connor laced with pleas. He's sorry in his way. Come home. But home was ash. Tank, opportunistic, filled the void, named starter quarterback. His redemption parade through town cobbled on Connor's grave. Sighting him at the market, arm in arm with a cheerleader, Connor's gut twisted. No confrontation, just a hollow nod. The betrayal scar a permanent tattoo. Cleveland's art scene, once sanctuary, turned voyeuristic. Castmates whispered post-rehearsal, eyes darting, saw the article. Tough break. Madame Elise, fierce matriarch, rallied additions. Pittsburgh Ballet, Cleveland's own company. But rejections piled, each stamped with the scandal's shadow. Zach, prepping for departure, balanced optimism and ache. We'll make it work. Sublets in Brooklyn, weekend trains. But logistics mocked romance, the Cuyahoga's brown waters mirroring Connor's doubt. Climax crested in November's chill, the Steel Valley Spartans facing rivals in the playoff qualifiers. A rematch with the team that had crushed them sans Connor. Harlan, haunted, invited him incognito one game. For old times. Connor agonized. Zach's counsel a scalpel. Go. End it on your terms. The stadium loomed. Friday lights a coliseum. Crowds a sea of judgmental faces. Connor slipped in hooded, perched in the upper deck, anonymous amid the roar. The game was carnage. Spartans surging early, Tank's arm a cannon under Harlan's schemes. But halftime faltered. Interceptions, fumbles. The coach's sideline tirades echoing Connor's ghosts. Third quarter, a blitz sack Tank, helmet clanging, stretcher borne amid gasps. From the stands, Connor watched Harlan's collapse. Kneeling turfside, face ashen, the unbreakable man fracturing. Impulse propelled him down, weaving through ushers, bursting onto the field like a phantom. Dad! The word cut through chaos. Harlan's head snapping up, eyes wide in the floodlights. Medics hovered, but father and son locked, the world blurring. He's out. Concussion, a trainer barked. But Harlan waved them off, gripping Connor's arm. You came. No accusation, just raw need. Connor knelt, the grass damp under knees, Tank's form carted away. Couldn't not. The final drive was resurrection. Spartans rallying, Harlan's calls poetry of desperation. Victory snatched in overtime field goal. Post whistle, the field emptied slow, players slapping pads, but Harlan lingered, Connor beside. I pushed too hard, the coach admitted, voice hoarse over the din. Scared you'd eclipse me, then lost you trying to hold on. Confession spilled, regrets over the leaks. Tank's promotion a misstep born of grief. Called Juilliard this morning. Fixed it. Full ride. For you both. Connor's throat closed, tears salting the triumph. Why now? Harlan's hand, steadying, squeezed. Saw you in him, Tank, fumbling without guidance. You're my measure, son. Not the winds. Embrace followed, awkward but ironclad. The crowd's cheers a ironic fanfare. News crews swarmed, but they walked off arm in arm, legacy yielding to blood. Zach waited in the parking lot, truck idling, face alight with relief. Heard the roar. You okay? Connor pulled him close, Harlan nodding gruff approval. We all are. That night, the three shared beers on the Reeves porch, Harlan toasting new plays. Zach's laugh bridging gaps. Love, tested, proved elastic. Intimacy renewed in stolen glances. The promise of New York a shared horizon. But humanism tempers joy. Tank's recovery was slow. Friendship's bridge rebuilt plank by plank. Apologies over hospital jello. Tentative hangs at the diner. The town, fickle, shifted. Headlines from scandal to Reeves' redemption. But scars lingered, whispers fading but not silenced. Connor and Zach departed in August, U-Haul stuffed with dreams. Harlan's wave from the driveway a benediction. New York was baptism. Juilliard's grind a forge, studios humming with ambition. Their loft in Bushwick, rent split and roach dodging, became hearth. Mornings with coffee and nutcracker vinyls. Evenings collapsing in exhaustion. Bodies entwined in wordless gratitude. Harlan visited once, awkward in Chelsea's galleries, but his pride shone at their first student showcase. Tears in the old coach's eyes as Connor and Zach danced a world premiere, Fractured Fields, blending football's aggression with ballet's grace. Years folded. Debuts at City Ballet for Zach, Connor choreographing for regional troops. Their love a quiet constant amid applause. Harlan retired Spartan Helm to Ellen's Garden Club, finding solace in grandkids' recitals. Ellen's, from a cousin, but he clapped loudest. Betrayals healed into anecdotes. Tank a distant uncle at weddings. Decades arc bent gentle. Time's chisel softening edges. Connor and Zach's union, solemnized in a Central Park ceremony under May blossoms. Harlan officiating in a rented tux, voice-cracking vows, became legend in their circles. The quarterback and the cavalier, rewriting scripts. Juilliard yielded to apprenticeships, then contracts. Zach ascended to principal at New York City Ballet. His Giselle a critic's darling, ethereal yet grounded. Connor carved niche as choreographer, his works fusing athleticism and emotion. Gridiron Ghosts, premiered at Lincoln Center, drawing Harlan upstate for opening night. The coaches sniffled applause a private ovation. Youngstown receded but roots tugged. Ellen's health faltered, cancer insidious as rust, drawing them homeward. Flights shuttled frequent. Zach's hand in Connor's a talisman through chemo waits. Harlan aged visibly, the bear softening to grizzly. His den now lined with playbills beside trophies. You boys built something? He'd grunt over Ellen's bedside, her frail hand linking theirs. Her passing was quiet, autumn leaves carpeting the grave. The family huddle a tableau of mended fractures. Grief forged deeper bonds. Zach and Connor adopted. A boy, Milo, with Connor's green eyes and Zach's wave of hair. Papers signed in a Brooklyn courthouse, Harlan beaming as godfather. Fatherhood reframed legacies. Weekends at Little League softened by ballet classes. Milo pirouetting in cleats, Harlan chuckling at the hybrid. Best of both, he'd say, ruffling the boy's mop. Betrayal's echo, faint now, surfaced in milestones. Tank, married with kids in Pittsburgh, crossed paths at a Spartans reunion. Beers shared, old wounds probed like healed tattoos. I was a kid, scared shitless. Tank admitted, eyes downcast. Connor forgave, not for erasure, but evolution. Handshakes sealed pacts unspoken. Climax revisited in subtlety. Harlan's memoir, ghosted for a Cleveland publisher. titled Beyond the Goal Line. Chapters chronicled not just X's and O's, but the fumble with Connor, the sabotage admitted raw, a father's mea culpa. Launch at the Elks Lodge drew crowds, Harlan reading passages tremulous. I expected a mirror, got a masterpiece instead. Connor, on stage beside him, voice steady. He taught me to fight, for the ball, then for me. Applause thundered, cathartic, the town absolving in waves. Zach's career peaked with a gala honoring Rivers of Steel. The Chautauqua piece evolved into full length. Connor guest choreographed the finale. A pas de deux for Milo-inspired youths. Harlan in front row, handkerchief dabbing. Post-curtain, father and son retreated to the green room, Harlan's arm heavy on shoulders. Proud Con. Of all this, no qualifiers, just truth, human, flawed, whole. Their life, romantic in retrospection, wove humanism's thread. Love not conquest, but companionship through tempests. Evenings in the loft, Milo asleep, they danced slow in the living room. Zach leading, Connor following, to Ellington or old game anthems, laughter bubbling. Forever, Zach murmured once, mid-turn. Connor's reply, forehead to forehead. Longer. Harlan's decline came swift, heart, the organ that had armored too long. Hospital vigils mirrored Ellen's, family orbiting the bed. Milo drawing crayons on charts, Tank visiting with pie, the prodigal circle complete. Last words, rasped to Connor. Keep dancing, son. It's the real win. Harlan slipped at dawn, stadium lights metaphorically dimming. Funeral was gridiron elegy. Bagpipes over turf, eulogies from boosters and ballerinas. Connor spoke last, voice carrying. He expected me to follow. I led us both home. Graveside under Ohio oaks, Zach's hand steadied, Milo's small one in the other. A lineage unbroken. Years post, Connor helmed a conservatory in Cleveland, blending sports and arts for Rust Belt kids. Milo first student pirouetting tackles. Zach retired to teach. Their loft traded for a house upstate. Lake views echoing Chautauqua. Visits to graves, Harlan's beside Ellen's, became rituals. Stories spun for Milo of the coach who learned to applaud. In quiet moments, Connor reflected. Conflict's forge had tempered them. Betrayal's blade honed forgiveness. Romance's bloom sustained by soil of struggle. No fairy tale gloss, but American grit, raw, resilient, redemptive. And in the dance, always the dance, they found grace.